Hi, I'm Dan Toomey. In this webcast, I'll be discussing hybrid connections, a new feature in Microsoft Azure that enables seamless integration between your cloud-based applications and the on-premises resources they consume, without requiring any extra code or changes in your corporate network configuration. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Santosh Chandwani, who not only freely shared these slides with me, but also provided extra help and support when I needed it. Santosh delivered the initial presentation of hybrid connections at TechEd USA when this first went live. Hybrid Connections is a new feature of BizTalk services that provides the fastest and easiest way to link your Azure websites and mobile services to resources hosted behind your corporate firewall. And it does so without requiring any extra code or configuration changes to either your application or your network. Because BizTalk Services is normally a fairly expensive option for integration, Microsoft has introduced a whole new tier that is exclusively designed to host hybrid connections, and it's currently free, within limits, of course. It's currently offered in preview only. Here are some of the key features of hybrid connections. It works on the transport layer using TCP, so if your resource can talk TCP or HTTP, then it should connect just fine. Because it works on the transport level, then there's no dependency on .NET, which opens it up for other frameworks. Like Service Bus relays, there are no network changes required. Finally, it provides for finely grained control over access to resources using group policy and other mechanisms. The principle of the hybrid connection is that you connect your Azure website or mobile service by first creating the hybrid connection in Azure, then by installing the Hybrid Connection Manager agent within your corporate network. At this point, you can register as many hybrid connections as you need within the one manager, connecting as many Azure applications as you like to the targeted resources in your network. Let's have a look at a simple demo to see how this works. The conception behind this demo is that we're building a simple web application that's an online guestbook for one of our user groups. The demo will show how easy it is to take a local website application and deploy it into the cloud while still maintaining connection to the resources behind your corporate firewall. What you're looking at is a remote desktop connection from my host machine to a server that's hosted inside our corporate network. Specifically, the machine name is devdan01. And the reason I'm able to connect to this machine is because I've been connected to the virtual private network for our company. So here we have a Visual Studio solution, and we see we've got a very simple WCF service with one method called display greeting. The greeting takes a string value as a parameter, and then it simply spits out that parameter with a welcome tag in front of it. It also displays the machine name where the WCF service is hosted, and this will be useful later to prove where our WCF service is running from. Now, I've already deployed this service on my local machine, and we can browse it here. And because I'm connected to the VPN, I can also browse it from within my host machine. However, if I were to disconnect from the VPN, and I'll just do that right now because it's important to prove this point, then this service would no longer be accessible. That's because it's not exposed publicly through our firewall. So now I'll go back and connect to the VPN again and relaunch our desktop. And we'll go back to our Visual Studio solution, and now I'll show you the second resource that's going to be used, and that is a SQL table, which is created in a named instance on my server. And the table is simply called refreshments. The idea is that I'm creating a website application that is essentially a guestbook for our Brisbane Azure user group. And it makes use of both this WCF service for the welcome greeting and the table to display the menu of refreshment items that we might offer. So if we go ahead and run that website locally, you'll see our sign-in page. So if you enter your name and click this button, it's going to call that WCF service to assemble the welcome message, which it does. And notice it displays the machine name as well. And then if I click this button, it's going to query that SQL table and display the items that would be available on our menu. A very simple application. Now that we've got that all deployed and running locally, what I want to do is deploy this to an Azure website. So I've already created a website in Azure, and I've already downloaded the published profile. So by going back into the Visual Studio solution, I can simply go Publish, go back to the first screen for this wizard, and import the published profile, which is here. Now you'll see that this pre-populates all of the criteria that I need in order to deploy this website to Azure. We'll just validate connection and make sure everything is all good. And we're all set. Notice that it's determined that I have a connection string in my web config file. So we'll go ahead and use the one that it's picked up from that config file. Now, I haven't modified this connection string at all to be connecting from an external source. Now we could preview what's going to be published, but I think we'll just go ahead and publish it in this case. Now that we're there, we can go ahead and browse the site. Now, when I enter my name and click this button, it's going to be calling or attempting to call that WCF service to assemble the greeting. However, because this is running in Azure, then it's not going to have access to that site, and we should get an error, which is what we'd expect. This is where hybrid connections come in. So we'll go ahead and close that. And if we go back to our Azure portal, you'll see that I've already created a BizTalk service. And the BizTalk service is the free edition. The free edition only supports hybrid connections. So you can't build any bridges or do any EDI processing through this edition of a BizTalk services instance. But you can host hybrid connections. So what we want to do is use that service to create hybrid connections to connect to our website. Now, in order to do that, because this is a preview feature, we need to use the preview version of the Azure portal. If you want to know how to get to that, you simply click on your subscription name and say switch to new portal. But I've already loaded it up here. So let's go and browse our website through the new portal. And if we go in here to the configuration and features, we'll see that we have a hybrid connections feature. Right now I have 0. If I click that, we'll come into a new blade, which will give me the ability to add a new hybrid connection. It's determined that I don't have any existing hybrid connections, so it's automatically opened a new blade to create one. In the name field, I just have to type a descriptive, unique name that means something to me. So my formula is to use the name of the server, the on-premise server that my resource is being hosted on, and then a tag to indicate what service it is that I'm trying to access. In this case, it's a WCF service. Here in the host name, I have to enter the fully qualified name of the machine that's hosting the on-premise resource that I want to access, which is devdan01.mexia.local. And in the port, I have to enter the port for which I'm going to access this service through. Since it's a WCF service that I'm trying to access, and since it's not using SSL, port 80 is the correct port to enter here. It's the combination of the port and the host name that make the hybrid connection unique and enables it to connect across your network boundaries. Now notice that because I've already created a BizTalk service and it's found one in my subscription, it's already entered that here. If I hadn't had a BizTalk service yet, I would have been prompted to create a new one, which I could do from here. But we'll go ahead and use that one and click OK. So it's displayed the newly created hybrid connection, but notice its status is not connected. That's because I haven't done the on-premises setup yet. So what I need to do is to click this and then click the Listener Setup button. Here I have two options. If I'm browsing from the actual on-premise server that I want to install the connection manager on, I could click Install and Configure Now. And I certainly could do that in this case. However, I'm going to demonstrate the other option, which is to download and configure manually. So for that to work, I'm going to need this connection string. The hybrid connection always creates a primary and a secondary connection string. It doesn't matter really which one you use, but notice that it says on-premises. So this is the connection string that the on-premise connection manager needs to use in order to reach the listener that's in Azure. So we're going to go ahead and click that to copy it because I know I'm going to need it later. And then we'll click Download and Configure Manually. And we'll just run the installer. Now it might be a little unnerving that there's no confirmation message saying that that install has succeeded. But if we go into Add and Remove Programs, you'll see that it doesn't show the Hybrid Connection Manager until I refresh this window. And now we can see that it's been installed. Now, even though we have the Connection Manager installed, we have to register this particular hybrid connection with that manager. And we can do that through PowerShell. When we installed the Connection Manager, it also installed a few PowerShell commandlets as well, including this one, add hybrid connection, which takes a single parameter, the connection string. And I like to put it in quotes, so we'll just paste in that connection string that I copied from before. Click Enter, and there it's registered. So if we now go back to our window and view the status of this hybrid connection, within a few seconds it should change from not connected to connected. And it has. So now if I go and browse our website, when I register my name, I should get the welcome message because now it should be able to access that WCF service. And it does. And notice that it's displaying the machine name that that WCF service is hosted on, which is inside our corporate network, even though we're accessing it from a site in Azure. Now, if I click this button to display the menu, we're going to get an error. And the reason is that even though I've established a connection to the WCF service, I haven't created a hybrid connection that will be suitable for the SQL database, because that surely does not operate on port 80. So as you can see, I was unable to access the SQL database because it's not accessible on port 80. So to accommodate that, we need to create a second hybrid connection. Now I could do that through this website management console in the preview portal, as I did the first one, but I'm going to show you a different way for adding the second one. We're going to go back to the BizTalk Services instance in the old portal and add the hybrid connection through here. So first, I'll see the original hybrid connection that I've created, and you'll notice that I also have the ability to manage it from here, including downloading the on-premises listener and accessing the connection strings. But what I'm going to do is actually add a new hybrid connection. And like the other one, I'm going to use the same convention by giving the host name and then the particular service that I want to access, which is SQL in this case. I still have to enter the fully qualified host name and, of course, the port number. Now, 1433 is the standard port for SQL, but because I've created a specific named instance, I've created a different port number for that. So that's what I need to enter here, and click OK, and then we wait for that hybrid connection to be created. Now, again, it shows that an on-premises setup is incomplete. That's because even though the connection manager is installed on my on-premise machine, I haven't registered this new hybrid connection. So to do that, I need to access the connection strings, which I can do from here. Now, notice that when I access it through the BizTalk Services portal, I don't get 2 connection strings, I get 4. The reason is because it shows both the application connection strings, which are used by the Azure resource, in this case it would be the website, and the on-premises connection strings. So previously when I did this through the website, because the website knew I was connecting to that resource, it didn't bother to show me the connection strings it's already using. It only gave me the on-premises one. So the important thing to realize here is that I've got to choose the on-premises connection string in order for this to work. So I'll go ahead and copy the primary connection string from that. And then we'll go back to our PowerShell commandlet. We'll go add hybrid connection string, and paste in the new connection string. As you can see, it's different than the other, and register that. And once that's done, we should see the status change to connected, which it is. So even though the hybrid connection is now installed on premises and connected, we still haven't wired it up to the website yet. So to do that, we need to go back to our website, into the Hybrid Connections blade, and click Add. Now in this case, it's detected that there is an unused hybrid connection waiting for us. So rather than having to create it again, I simply need to select that. And hopefully the website will work out very quickly that that is already connected. So we'll just wait for the status to update. All good. So now we should be able to browse our website and actually include not only the connection to the WCF service, but have the connection to the SQL Server working as well, so we can display our menu items. Not surprisingly, that works. Now let's see if the refreshments menu works as well. And it does. So we've now successfully demonstrated connection to 2 on-premises resources behind a firewall from an Azure website. And we didn't have to do any coding or make any configuration changes to that website. All we had to do was establish 2 hybrid connections to enable the connection to the WCF service and to the SQL Server. As you've seen, once you get your website or application working on premises, it's a simple matter of lifting it up into Azure. There is no need for any configuration changes. It will work exactly the same way as it did on premises, once you've established the necessary hybrid connections. Remembering that each hybrid connection is defined by a host name and a port number, let's just review what we witnessed in the demo. You start by creating the specific hybrid connection in the cloud for your particular target resource. Then you install and configure the on-premises agent to host that connection, completing the path to your resource. There is a lot of flexibility provided by the many-to-many cardinality offered by hybrid connections. For example, your Azure application can use several different hybrid connections to access multiple resources within your network. Likewise, multiple applications can share the same hybrid connection to access the same resource. Finally, the connection manager can host multiple hybrid connections to various resources. Given that hybrid connections rely on port assignments, resources that utilize dynamic port allocations aren't going to be supported. Also, be aware that although transport layer security is supported, dynamic port redirection or other features that rely on message inspection are not. You've already seen in the demo that shared access signatures are used within the connection strings for authorization. You've also seen that there are separate credentials for the Azure application and the on-premises connector, allowing these to be controlled independently. Just be aware that any application-level authorization is the responsibility of, well, your applications. Hybrid connections work on the transport layer, so any authorization mechanisms, such as tokens or username password, should still work. There is plenty of opportunity for scaling out to enhance resiliency and performance. Not only can you scale out your Azure websites or applications at will and still share the same hybrid connection, but you can also create multiple instances of your connection manager on premises. This will afford both failover and load balancing, as connections will be evenly distributed amongst the instances in a round-robin fashion. You can also support clusters by placing the connection manager in front of the load balancer. As mentioned previously, IT administrators can feel comfortable in knowing that they have full, fine-grained control over the hybrid connections, using group policy to constrain access to resources. They also have monitoring capabilities via the logging and dashboard that comes with hybrid connections. With no custom code or application reconfiguration required, hybrid connections unquestionably provides the fastest and easiest way to lift your existing website or application to the cloud whilst retaining access to your on-premises resources, all via a few gestures in the Azure Preview portal. Please check out Santosh's TechEd presentation on Channel 9, or search for these links on MSDN and TechNet for step-by-step guidance on how to build hybrid connections yourself. I'd also recommend this excellent blog post by Michael Stevenson, where he compares hybrid connections to service bus relays and discusses when to use which technology. If you've enjoyed this presentation, please check out the Brisbane BizTalk user group's web portal, where you'll find plenty of other links and resources. You can also find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. Again, I'm Dan Toomey, and I want to thank you for listening to this webcast. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to ping me on Twitter or use the YouTube comment stream.